So this time, may I request one of you to lead the prayer? Could we have Miss Cabanero to lead the prayer? Miss Maria Eliza. Miss Eliza, good morning. Miss Eliza.
Good morning po.
Yeah, so that's good. All right, so you may lead the prayer now so we could begin.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, lead us into temptation.
I'm sorry, Miss Eliza, I didn't hear you clear. Okay, Miss Eliza, good morning.
Hello po. Ma'am, naririnig niyo po ba ako?
Ayan, okay.
Matitigan na lang po. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Miss Cabanero, for leading the prayer. Okay, once again, good morning, everyone. Today is April 18, Monday. Okay, so how are you all? Were you able to find time to reflect or let us say relax? Okay, pause from the tasks from school. Okay, how are you? How are you after the Holy Week? How are you? Miss Belonia, how are you?
I'm fine po, ma'am. Just feeling a bit, a bit sick.
Okay, so that's good. Yeah, how about for the others? Miss Angeli Pili, I already included you. Are you here? Not in here. Okay. Okay, so I can see that we are already 14 this time. So let me check the attendance so we will have continuous discussion. Okay, so let's have the same present once I call your surname. Okay, Belonia, Angela,
Present po.
Cacao, Joshua,
Present po.
Castro, John Aaron,
Present po.
Cavanero, Maria Eliza,
Present.
Junicio, Maria Ella,
Present po.
Next, Elido Shira.
Present po.
Okay, Salazar Erica.
Present. Present.
Okay, Esposo Jasmine.
Present po, ma'am.
Okay, next in line, Fernandez Eliza.
Present po, ma'am. Good morning po.
Good morning. Next, Galvez Dainzy.
Present po, ma'am.
Next, Morelos Ralph Ryan.
Present po.
Okay, next, Tumines Mary Grace.
Present po, ma'am.
Okay, next, Vencio Karen K.
Present po, ma'am.
Okay, and Villanueva Mika Ella.
Present po, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so for today, this is already our third synchronous session. Tama ba? I'll check the calendar. Oh, ayan. So third synchronous session, and this will be the third, okay, discussion that we will have in class. Okay, so take note that Last time we started the spoken and written discourse, and today, so we will have a continuation of that. Okay, so as I look into your responses on the video that you've watched, then I'm glad to see, okay, so ideas that you've got from the basic concepts as discussed on the video. Okay, so now let's have now the continuation. Okay, last time, just a quick look on what we discussed last time. Okay, so we then have a thorough discussion of discourses and social languages. From our discussion last time, then we arrive with the the relevance of discourses in our life as it stands for the social situations in the social context. Okay, so we then prove because of the examples and the study conducted on that language do have a magical property. And what are the proofs for that, for the magical property of language? Okay, that the language do have its power. Okay, so the power of language in action in the world, that there are different situations in which the language is being used. For example, your actions, interactions, even on the symbols, object, tools, technologies, and even your own distinctive ways of thinking, valuing, feeling, and believing. Okay, so that is the power of language in the world. So we then look on the reasons based on the study of Malcolm in 2011 on the power of language and the language power. Okay, so first thing, there is a power of the linguistic systems. So you know that language is not just in there to combine those letters, but then there must have a meaningful unit. And every segment do have its own properties or categories or features that you have to understand. And then that will be the composition on the levels of the language, okay, as presented in this chart. Okay, the second aspect on the power of language is the power that it gives us to make things happen. So your words, okay, so those are very significant. So both in spoken and written discourse, remember? So like in here, as the example, so I pronounce you man and wife, it is not just a statement, but then there is a significant, okay, announcement on that. Okay, so it makes things happen. And then that would be the start of that pronouncement. Okay, even on the written. Okay, both spoken and written discourse. For example, yung contracts, like what we had last time, remember? For example, yung contracts, memorandum, okay, memorandum of agreement. So those language mentioned in there or being used on the spoken and written discourse, so it would have a power to make things happen. For example, if the president will sign a decree, and then that would mean what could be written in there on the written discourse, then it will happen. Okay, so take note of the following as the the groupings. Okay, so when they had a category of those language being used in different functions or roles of language. Okay, so another thing, so there is more than this to the power of language. So it is being mentioned that the language do have the same effect between human beings. Okay, so it is being discussed in there. So yung face-to-face interaction, okay, so do have effect on you. That's why the example that we had last time in a simple statement like you may make or break a person. Okay, so that would be, so the power do have, okay, effect on a person, even on the conversation. Like you may inspire, you may motivate, you may entertain, you may also trigger, okay, a disagreement on this on certain situations. So that's the explanation in here. Okay, the power is also seen in the capacity of speaker to achieve an effect on the listener. And we have the two, linguistic analogy and cognitive appropriation. So the language do have an effect on the situation and then not even in there, even on the behavior of the person. So that's why in layman's terms, so we have to consider ethical communication, okay, but in technical aspect of the language, for our case, for English discourse. So that would mean we have to understand. So we have to analyze. So what are the features or characteristics of that language that would suggest certain behavior or that would come up certain situation in the social context. Okay, so that would mean we will have treatment of the language not only in the lens of the layman person, just on how the language will ordinarily be used in the class or at the mall or at home or on what might be the situation, but we will look into it as on the functions of the language. What could the language will bring? Or on the other way around, we will look on the situation, we will look on the behavior, and we will see on how language affects such situation. Okay? So we could have the reference in there for Saphir-Whorf hypothesis. So it's the influence of the language on one's cognition, even on the language acquisition, even on bilingualism. And what about more? If we will look on the behavior as part of for the cognitive appropriation. Okay? So the power behind the language and the power of the language itself. So for us, English discourse, so your role to analyze the language, to analyze the situation in which the language is in, then we may look on the two. So that would mean if you will conduct your research in the future, you may look on the language itself, and the language would suggest something in relation to power, in relation to the situation, or it could be the other way around. Okay, like the power is the one which will suggest something. Okay, so the language maintains, unites, creates influence. So you'll see. So you'll see. In here, you may look on the background of the language. Okay, where the language is in. Okay, what particular situation where that language is in, and then you'll try to analyze the language, or it could be the other way around. So the effect of language on certain situations. Okay, so these are the two things that you may look into the language as you will conduct your research. Okay, it could be sometime in the future. It could be probably next academic year. Okay, so just okay, try to go back into the following theory. So that's how you're going to apply. And as we look into our discussion, then we'll try to come up with analysis. Okay, analysis of the language that could be an example on how are you going to gather, okay, the corpus of your study, and how are you going to analyze such, okay, language. Okay, is that clear? Ayan. So task one. So we then had a sharing of this one. The the construct of the six things in here or the six areas in relation to reality. So it's also another a specific example on the connection of the discourse and the social. Eto. So here, when we had the title of the social languages. Okay, so meaning and value of aspect of the material world in your day-to-day activities, coming up or establishing certain identity and relationship, even politics. So that's very clear as we have the situation today, or making connections and even semiotics. So that would mean the linguistic landscape, so the sign that you can see around. So that would suggest something. So language is also present in there. Okay. So do you have other more questions with regards to our discussion last time? Do you have other more questions or something in your mind with our discussion last time? Mm.
None po, ma'am. Clear po.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Jasmine, for your response. So it's good that it's clear, so we may proceed to the next. Okay, so in here, okay, the examples per areas of reality. Ay, okay. So we are also through in here pala. So this course and communication. So the different competencies. So it's being presented to you on how is the evolution of those theories. Okay. So they made it into theories as you have it in the theoretical framework of your study, for example. Okay. How it started with one, going to one, two, three, four, five, six. Ayan. So we are done with this one. So by differentiating the following, then you would be able to see that for the different competency, then discourse competence is one of it. Okay, so it's part of the competency that everybody should be or should develop in line with the language. So this representation shows now the relationship. So that would mean as you look on the different competencies, so those are connected with each other. So one would have its certain role, okay, into the production of the language, or when we said communicative competence. Okay, in the absence of one, so that would mean there is a gap in terms of communicative competence. So for example, you know the language, but you do not know on how are you going to interact using the language. So there's lacking one of the competency. So that would mean there's a gap for the communicative competence. Okay, so that's the bottom line for the relationship of those. Okay, in here. So the example for the discussion. Okay, so then let's start this one for the continuation. So this is still under the spoken and written discourse, and we'll have the topics such as the functions of language and the research toolkit for critical discourse analysis. Okay, so critical discourse analysis will have a separate discussion in our subject. Okay, for now, so you will see the overall picture of the critical discourse analysis. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so the six functions of a language by Halliday, which started in 1979. Okay, so as we have a discussion, so I would ask you to provide examples. Okay, example of a sentence in this particular functions of a language. Okay, so in 1975, so Halliday is the proponent of the functions of language, and then there are six as on how it started before. Okay, the first one is instrumental to obtain goods or services. And for that, as an example, I want function. Okay. If we will relate it into a common or ordinary situation or in a realistic situation of discourse, for example, the functions of language in a spoken discourse. Okay, in a spoken discourse. So now will you give an example whereas that statement, okay, in a normal spoken situations, okay, that particular statement is under instrumental to obtain goods or services. Okay, sige nga, let me hear from you. Will you give an example for number one, just one statement in an ordinary or real spoken situations, whereas the function of the language is instrumental? Okay, anyone from you? I would be glad to hear from you to give an example for instrumental to obtain goods or services. Let me go back if there's anyone who's raising a hand. Okay. So again, so let me go back in here. So the first function is instrumental. And the purpose of that, the objective of that is to obtain goods or services. Okay, so it is being branded or labeled as the I want function. Okay, will you give a specific statement whereas it's under instrumental? Oh, let me give you an example. Okay, for example, my son, my husband will celebrate his birthday, and my son said, I want to go to the city of dreams. So for that, I want to go to the city of dreams. The function of the language is instrumental to obtain such service, so to obtain such time for entertainment or leisure. Okay, it's an example. I want to go to the city of dreams. Okay, sige nga kayo. So will you give your own example on that, on a particular situation? And kindly identify or if you can recall any scenario. So one statement like what I gave. Anyone? Do I need to call? Don't be shy. Okay, recall a situation whereas there is the instrumental function of a language. Okay, thank you, Miss Karen. Okay, your turn, Miss Venshaw.
Hi, ma'am. Yes po. As for me po, context po in a fast food restaurant, you can say po that I want to order burger steak and with jolly hot dog.
Okay, ayan. Thank you, Miss Bencio. Parang nagutom ako sa example ni Miss Bencio. Okay. Ayan, so it's correct. So in the real spoken situations or context, I mean, I want, 'di ba? So in the cashier they're asking, What is your order?" I want. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, so it's correct. To obtain certain good or services for that particular meal, okay, or product, okay, so that will be correct. Okay, instrumental. Okay, instrumental. Okay, next. Let's have now regulatory. Regulatory now is the function of language, whereas the purpose is to control the behavior of others. Okay, to control the behavior of others. So it is being regarded as do as I tell you function. Okay, because the one speaking would like to control the behavior of others. Okay, so would like to control the behavior of others. Or let me give an example again in a normal, in a real spoken situations. For example, regulatory. It was yesterday. Okay, so my son is crying or he would like to play with his cousin, and then I told him, do not go under the sun, just go on the shaded area. Okay, so that's an example. So that is the situation, and then that is an example. Do not go under the sun. Just go to the shaded area because they are playing the scooter. He is riding the scooter. Okay, so do as I tell you function. So the function is regulatory. I would like to control certain action. Okay, so you may have control certain action, certain behavior, certain decision. Okay, so that's how are we going to elaborate this one? Okay, so number two. Oh, anyone from you who could give an example for regulatory? Let me check if there's anyone who's raising a hand. Oh, anyone? Miss Karen, Miss Jasmine. Okay, so let's have Miss Karen, then followed by Miss Jasmine. Ito. So for Joshua, I want to get my shoes cleaned. Regulatory. This one is for the first. Ito yung instrumental. Ano, Joshua, yung una? Ayan. And then regulatory. Start swimming in the pool. Okay, it's correct. It's correct for the example of Joshua. Okay? O sige, let's have now Miss Vencio, followed by Miss Esposo.
Yes, ma'am. One example po is vote wisely in this coming election.
Ayan, so correct. So vote wisely. So it seems that you would like na, for example, on the situation, it could be you would like to people to vote wisely, to regulate such actions of people in terms of voting. Okay, it's correct. It's correct, Miss. Ayan, Vensho. Okay, so next, Miss Jaswin.
As for me po, ma'am, the context is po because I have my three younger brothers. So whenever I instruct them po, please stay behave on that side while I'm preparing things like that po.
Ayan. Okay, so it's correct. Okay, so when you would like to regulate such behavior, so that's another for the function of language. Correct. To control, to give a certain instruction in which they really have to follow. Okay, regulatory. Okay, next let's go to the third. The third one is the interactional, to interact with others. So the me and you function. So interactional would mean just simply exchange of conversation. Interactional, it could be in a form of a question, because when you have a question, interrogative, then that would mean you are seeking for a response, like what what do what is our plan for lunch. Okay, so that is interactional, though the form is interrogative, and then the response would be declarative form. Like we may have sinigang and fried chicken. Okay, so that is interactional. So the situation in there is preparation for meal. Okay, so that could be the situation. Okay, o sige. So let's have an example from you, interactional. Whereas there would be a response and two will be involved, or three, so that would be possible. Okay, for interactional, also one thing is for sure, once there is a statement, then there it is requiring for a response. Okay, o sige, so let's have an example from you. Let me check. Okay, think of the normal day in your life where there is an interaction, just a normal conversation. Okay, Miss Jasmine.
Yesterday po, ma'am. My parents asked if should we go to the beach or just stay at home po.
Ayan. And then what is the response?
Since we're lazy po, we just chose to stay at home.
Okay, ayan. So those are the examples for interactional. Okay, question, and then the response could be in a declarative form, another statement, or it could just simply be a statement. Okay, for both, where there is an exchange of ideas. Okay, that would be possible. Or even in the classroom, for example, ito, what's taking place in our discussion. So I ask you to give an example, or if I ask you, do you have any question? There's a response. So it's an example for interactional. Okay. Or if there will be concepts, that what is your understanding of this particular concept, and then one student will respond. Okay, ayan, so those are the examples for interactional. Okay, next, let's have now personal, to express the personality of the child. So this is categorized as here I come function. Okay, to express. Okay, so they said that it could be personal, could be something personal. Okay, the situations could be within the family. Okay, it could be among friends. So something, people who are close to you. So topics could be something which should be discussed within the family. Okay, it could be personal, to express simple feelings, to express simple ideas. So that is personal. Or here I come, it could also be you are in there, so you will be expressing, okay, something about your personality, your preferences. So as simple as that. Okay, so personal, like I prefer, for example, within the context, in the family. So saying that I prefer to visit, as simple as I prefer to visit my mother in the morning. So we will have long time to stay in there. Okay? So as simple as that for personal. Okay? So topics could be something personal or something which shouldn't be discussed in public. So topics could be something that the family should be aware of. So it's the opposite of the formal situations. Okay? So that is personal. Or even if you are with your friends, so just simply having conversation about you, that will do. Okay? Or example for personal. Anyone who could give an example for personal? Well, let's have how about for the others? Nakadalawang recitation na si Joshua, si Jaswin, si Vencio. Okay. In here, for Villanueva. Hala, what's happening to you? You don't want to recite. Pero okay naman yung mic nyo. Okay, so here for the answer of Junicio. Shall we go to the errand? So this one, what particular function are you referring for Miss Junicio? Shall we go run errands and buy some coffee? I believe this is the interactional, no? Because this is in a form of a question. Tama ba, Miss Junicio? Ayan. Okay. Ala, parang you don't want to recite for your answer. Okay, so this one for Miss Villanueva. What do you want to watch? Let's watch a horror movie. Okay. Ayan. So, interactional. Oh, wait lang. I will update my class record. Junicio Villanueva and Cacao. Okay, Miss Villanueva, what do you want to watch? Let's watch a horror movie. Okay, another situation, jeepney. Okay. Ito yung ano, I remember this one, Joshua. Yung sa joke nung ano, foreigner inside the elevator. Sabi ng foreigner, so why our Filipinos are like minions? Okay. Ayan. Ayan. So are you guys minions? Yung bababa po. Okay. Ayan. But then the context in there, so though this one is in Filipino, it's correct. Okay. Interactional. Okay. Ayan. So Mirelos, for Ralph, do you want to stay? No, I don't want. Okay. So that will be for Mirelos. Ayan, oo, yung naalala ko yung joke na yun. Okay. So what else? Let's see. Hala, so you are responding on the chat. I want to hear from you. Okay. So this one for Miss Fernandez, do you want to eat or just watch instead? Eat and watch. Okay, both. Okay, so that's the response of Miss Fernandez. Okay, so let's proceed now. Something personal. Something personal. So conversation. Actually, if you will take a look, okay, personal. Let's see on how are you going to give example like opinion, okay, emotions, feelings, okay. So something that if you will read that, okay, it has something to do with personal opinion, feelings, preferences. Tingnan natin. Okay, let me check now. Eto, interactional. Okay, something personal. Ayan. So your clue in there would be I prefer, I like, okay? What I would love to do, those are your clues. And in here for the answer of Miss Belonia, it's correct. I prefer going out at night than in the morning. Okay, so it's correct. Yan. So you will have a clue para because if you will not look on the clues in there, it would seem to be overlapping, like overlapping with interactional. So we may have clues in terms of ideas like I think, I prefer, I like, I love. Okay. Okay. So in here for the answer of Castro, I like to wear blue shirt. Ayan. So with the word of likeness, then we can consider that as personal. Okay, so it's correct. So let's proceed to the next. Ayan tuloy. Tapos may nagre-raise ng hand. Okay na. Sige. May hilo tayo papunta sa chat, raising hand, and then PowerPoint, the presentation. Okay. So next, heuristic. So heuristic, the fifth one, to explore and learn about the environment. So they are saying that this is the tell me why function. Okay, why tell me why? Because it entails explanation about the environment. Okay, so this would entail a discussion about natural phenomenon, so that could be, or just simply the natural occurrence of things around you. Okay, so why is it the, the why is it the sun is rising on the east and falling on, let's say yung rising or rising on the east, or it could be why is it there is no snow in the Philippines. Okay, it's something like that, just simply to explore or learn about the environment, or even just simply discussing, for example, at home, just simply discussing how things should be, like talking about the drainage. Okay, so that would be possible, about the garbage. Okay, so why is it if you will put that in there, that will happen, etc. Okay, so those are the normal conditions in which heuristic would be falling under. Okay, o sige, let's give an example for heuristic about the environment, about the natural things occurring around you. Okay. Okay, even as simple as you are discussing, why is it? It seems that the aircon is not functioning right now, even if it's only, let us say, it's only February, for example. It's supposed to be cold. Okay, so as simple as that. So something about the environment. Okay, or let us say in Filipino, if you're having a discussion, why is it's flooding in our place this time, whereas last year we haven't encountered, and even on the previous year. Okay, it has something to do with that. So simply conversation to explain or to discuss further. Okay, so we have Miss Belonia. Okay,
Ma'am,
Miss
try
Angela.
lang po.
Okay.
Why are there no bears in the Philippines?
Yan, so it could be, okay? So, nako, to discuss, actually, my son is asking, but wala daw panda, yung panda. Okay, so that could be. So, it's taking place in a normal situation. Okay, why is it some are existing and some are not? Okay, and the response in there, the conversation would be, okay, okay, thank you. It's correct, Miss Belonia. Okay, so let's have in here. Ayan, so you have response in here. Ayan, so we've attended into this one. I am personal. I don't like full milk in my coffee. Okay, personal. I prefer being at home rather than outside. Okay, it's correct. Personal. I prefer sleeping. Okay, personal. For me, 2 minutes. I like to talk about. Ayan, so those are the words. Okay, the cue for the clues. Okay, in the context of politics, I prefer. Correct. Okay. Personal, I'm afraid of bees. Okay, heuristic. Ayan. So why is the sky blue? Okay, it's correct. Ayan. Okay, whereas science may explain that, di ba? For such. Okay, so Castro in here, how does light travel? Ayan. Okay, how could you tell me why you choose presidential number one? Okay. And this one for Erica, why is it too hot? Ayan. Okay, so it's clear now for heuristic. Why is it dark outside even though it's still early? Okay, why is it in the other country, di ba? Even if it's 7 p.m., it's still, it's not yet dark. Okay, why do leaves have lines on them? Okay, ayan. So usually we can, why is it, why is I'm too hot? Okay. Ayan. So maybe science could explain why are you too hot? Why does the river never stop flowing? Okay? Ay, parang yung mga questions natin, no? We really have, why do birds? Okay. Ay, why do birds suddenly appear? So it's like the line of the song. Okay. Ayan. So we'll see. Okay. So those are the functions of the language. And then that is for heuristic. So exploration, learning. So it needs, let us say, it could be science or research or the natural phenomenon to explain or to discuss about it. Okay. Next. So this one for number six, to create the child's own environment. So it's imaginary. Okay, so let's pretend function. So it is labeled as let's pretend function. For example, or for my son, yung last time he's wearing a headband, and then my sister said, why is it he's wearing a headband? And then I asked him, why are you wearing the headband? And then he said, because I'm a cheetah man. Okay, that is what he said. I'm a cheetah man. So cheetah because he's a man. So he just have a connection of the two words. So let's pretend function, imaginary. Okay? So probably no, it's easy to recognize. Okay, and for number seven now, in 1978, so Halliday added one more for the functions of the language. So it is no longer limited to six, and then it's now seven. Okay, so starting from 1978, it's seven. Okay, so representation, so language that is used to relay or request information, so used to convey facts or information. So in here, representation is another self-explanatory, no, for representation. So the language used to relay or request information, so relay ideas, for example, classroom discussion, giving information, okay, news report. Okay, or if there are questions that were were asked, then The information will be the response, like asking directions. Even those situations could be an example for representation. Okay, request or even request. Okay, so I hope that it's clear. So this time in here, in 2003, so here's the study being presented for Holiday. Okay, the seven functions of the language, for your further understanding of the following. Okay, regulatory. So the language is used to influence behavior. It would be passable, persuade, command, request people or other people to do things you want or I want. Okay, or give me, like yung order, yung example kanina. Okay, so interactional function of language is used to develop social relationship. Ito yung further discussion of Holiday. Okay, interaction. It could be just an ordinary talk that would be possible, or it could be to develop social relationship. Okay. Personal function. It could be about identity, feelings, emotions, personality, opinion, reaction of the speaker. Okay. Representation. Function of the language is used to exchange information. Okay. So to distinguish this one, it is more on factual information or a simple request. So still, so based on facts or real context, still the same. Okay, heuristic. Okay, to learn and explore the environment. For example, the child uses language to learn. This may be question and answer or kind of running commentary. For example, what the tractor is doing. Okay, so just how is the how is the aircon producing a cold air? Yung mga simple, as simple as that. Okay, even on the lens of a child or even on an adult. Like how is it functioning? Or seeing a new gadget and then you ask, how is it working? Okay, so natural environment or the environment as is where we are living or exploring around. Okay, imaginative function. Yan, to explore the imagination, to create imaginary system, tell stories, jokes. So as simple as that. Okay, instrumental function, to language uses to express what people's needs. Apostrophe S, for example, I want to buy instrumental function, car to make me easy for everything. So emphasizing on what could be the outcome of that. Okay. Ayan. So, obtaining something. Okay? So, here, on the six functions now, so you can clearly distinguish, okay, the differences of the different functions of the language. Okay? Also, this time, so I would like you to look on to look on this example. Okay, so meaning instrumental to express needs. More examples. I need help in making a robot. Regulatory, the meaning. This one is specific meaning now to influence the behaviors. You do that other thing. Okay, mommy, smell this one. Interactional to form relationship. Personal to express opinion. I'll make something that you really like. Okay, heuristic to seek information. How do you make purple? So that would mean in combining colors or imaginative to express creative language. Why do you have all those ears? Okay, representational to give information. I made a daddy a snowman. Okay, to give a simple information like I'm done cooking lunch. Okay, I'm done preparing for the subject. I submitted my assignment. So those could be the other more examples. Okay, so let us find okay your analysis in the comforts of your home. Ay, okay, so in here. Okay, another example of heuristic. Okay, why do moon and stars glow beautifully? Okay, other more questions like where is the light of the sun coming from? Okay. Oh, sige. So let's proceed with this one. So this will be your second task. As we elaborate the functions of the language, then let's you will do this at the comforts of your home. Okay. So you will record the whole day conversation at home, but we will not have uh let us say we will not have the 612 18, 24, 24 hours. I just look at the clock. We will not just have the whole 24 hours, but we will limit, okay, up to 20 sentences, okay? So we will limit. So record will be depending on you. If you can record it as a written record, that will be fine. Okay, you will not submit your recording. Or if you really need a recorder with you, a voice recorder, so that will be also fine. So it depends on on what particular means will you be comfortable at. Okay, then after that, you categorize the sentences based on the seven language functions of holiday. Okay, seven based on the seven. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll fill all. It would be depending on the 20 sentences that you've got at home. Okay, then after that, you determine which of the following language functions could be the dominant language at home, okay, in your home, and what does it mean? Okay, so what does it mean? For example, if I will have my observation at home, it's more on, sa amin ha, in my own home, it's more on, because we have a child, a combination of imaginative function and this one, representational function. So it's more on like that. Okay. So we will see. What about in your own home? What could be the dominant function of the language? Okay, so you will do that. Okay, I will show you the ito. So I will show you the worksheet on how are you going to do that. So you will record the actual conversation at home in a day, but then take note you will not submit any recording, video recording or your written record, you will not submit. Okay, but in your if you will do this in your research, you really have to do the recording. Okay, kaya yung sa atin our discussions in class, I hope that you would be able to use this in the future, in your future research and in your future profession, okay? Yung mga analysis, so we will have example for this course analysis. Ayan, so record the actual. Kapag you've noticed that you already have 20 sentences, then stop na, okay? We'll just need the example, okay? Just not totally because this one, okay, we will make this for an experience of yours to analyze a language on discourse analysis. So exactly what you're going to do, it's a discourse analysis, okay? Analysis of a spoken discourse at home. And you could have it under the language functions at home, okay? So after that you got 20, or for example, breakfast pa lang naka 20 ka na, then sapat na yon, okay? So that's how. So it depends now on how are you in terms of your conversation? How interactional is your conversation at home? Then categorize the functions of language based on the model of holiday. Okay? So for example, ayan. So language function here. So what you will feel is this side and then this side. I will give the points in here. This will be, ayan. So this will be 50 points. Okay, the first one and yan. So you'll identify. This one is the dialogue at home, the actual dialogue. Okay, so the actual dialogue. And another side of the table is the actual experience. So the actual experience now would mean the actual scenario. Okay, remember dito sa chat nyo, meron kayo intro like politics. Okay, so you have in here during breakfast. Okay, oh, you gave the scenario. Okay, the scenario. Ayan, so for example, in your answers, nasa na ba yung, ayan, for example, yung jeepney, o may scenario. What else? When you gave an example, like you are at the fast food chain and you would like to order, okay? So that is what we mean by actual experience. So that would mean the actual experience would mean the scenario. For example, when you had preparing for breakfast or preparing for breakfast, then there are dialogues. So where are you going to put the dialogue. For example, why do you have to put so much onion on the ano? Or I want to have, for example, I want to have more garlic in the fried rice. So what particular function is it? I want to have more garlic. Which one, class? If you're going to categorize. I want to have more garlic. Sanyan class, where are you going to put it? With the clue of want. It's just a
Sa
personal
personal
preference.
po.
Ayan. Oh,
Instrument.
so, ayan. Correct. Instrumental. Ay, okay. So, instrument, use of language to communicate preference, choices, or neededs. Neededs to needed. Needs. Okay. Use of language to communicate preferences or choices. Ayan. So, in here, since it has something to do about preference, just a simple preference. So, and then I will put it in here. So, I want to have more garlic on the fried rice. Okay, so for example, on how are you going to fill the chart? Dialogue at home. Next, actual experience. So what's the actual experience? So for example, watching my mother, watching the mother preparing the breakfast. Breakfast. Okay, so did you see the point now on how are you going to fill the chart? Okay, or for example, another, si Bunso dumating. So the younger one said, Mommy, can you cook? Oh, the actual mommy, can you a request? For example, preference. Mommy, I like to eat spam for breakfast. Breakfast. Or if that's an ordinary, as simple as I like to eat spam. Okay, then still the same actual experience. Okay, so that's how. So dialogue, the exact dialogue, it may be in a complete sentence or not. Let us say, and here in the actual experience is as the same as the setting. So now, another thing in there is if the language that you are using is Filipino, okay, then you may have it this way like, "Oh, gusto ko ng maraming bawang sa sinangag." Then you'll just have the transcription. Okay? So that would mean it's the actual one. And then you'll just have the transcription on the lower part. Okay? So did you see it? So there's no problem if it's English or Filipino. You'll just need to have the English translation. Okay, but have it, okay, follow. The translation would be next to it. Okay? Okay, so that's how will be the presentation. Okay, so don't be bothered if the responses, because we have the actual spoken discourse. So don't be bothered if ay wait lang. Okay, don't be bothered if the responses are not in a complete sentence. So okay lang. Okay? O gusto ko maraming bawang and then putol na. So okay lang. I want to have more garlic. So you'll have the actual scenario to explain what is the situation. Okay? So do you have questions on how are you going to fill the chart? Do you have questions on how are you going to fill the chart?
Clear po, ma'am. Thank you po.
Okay. So it's good. Okay. I hope that the examples are helpful for you. Okay. And then after that, then for discourse analysis, yung analyzing the language will not end in there. Then we have to analyze. And with that analysis, then what would be the implication? So what will be the functions of the language? What will be the understanding? What could be the role of that language on what you did? Oh, for example, so if this will be the research that you will be working on, after that you did, after that you categorize, so what now? Okay, then the next thing would be the function of the language. Okay, so that is how for the discourse analysis, not just analyze and analyze, categorize and categorize, but then making sense, making sense of the analysis of the language. Okay, so I hope that this prompt will be helpful. So the first thing is to introduce what about that table. So you mentioned the table presents the actual conversation taken at home, and if you would have the overall the whole day, then you may do. So you just then discuss. The table presents the actual conversation taken at home during the starting from the morning during the preparation for breakfast until, so you'll just discuss where you've got such, okay, or the day to day. If you will take the whole day, then you may have the table presents the actual conversation taken at home for the whole day, so starting from the morning on the preparation of breakfast, then having exchange of conversation about the laundry as the normal routine in the house. Okay, then attending online classes, you'll just explain. Okay, so this answer would be based from you, where you've got the dialogues. Okay, what particular setting you've got the dialogues. Okay, next, after that, when you try to take a look, for example, dito ang dami sa interactional, baka yung 20 puro interactional, so no problem. Okay, so your role now to analyze is you will not intervene on the natural flow of the language at home. So just let it be and then you count. For example, instrumental dalawa, imaginative isa, heuristic tatlo. It depends. It depends on the language. Have it normal. Okay? Pwede nyo rin namang sabihan sa bahay that you will record the conversation. Pwede rin naman. But then, even if, so make it naturally occurring. Okay, kung pwedeng hindi nyo sabihan, then okay lang din naman. You'll just sit down quietly, having your notebook and pen, recording there, recording the conversation, writing the the responses, exchange of conversations, pwede rin. Okay, so we will have it in a natural situation. Okay, now after that, you count which one has the most frequent, which one is the most frequent, okay, frequent occurrence of the functions of the language. Then you just state. It shows that the dominant function, the dominant language function at home is, example is instrumental. Okay, instrumental. So you'll just mention the language which is more on communicating preferences, choices, wants, or need. It could be concluded that, okay, it can be concluded now would mean the implication of the dominance of language function. So what's your interpretation? If the dominant function of the language is instrumental, so what is your interpretation? It can be concluded that in the house, so people are comfortably communicating, expressing their preferences with each other, their choices, or because of personal relationship, pwede rin. Okay? So, did you see it now? Okay, what is the implication? Or what else? Or another lens. So that would mean for the conclusion, it depends on what will be the result of the dominant language which will be coming out. So now what could be the lenses that you may check when you try to identify now the implication? Okay? Or you may try to look on the relationship. Pwede rin, like the first example that I gave, that it is more, the language at home is more on instrumental. It signifies that they are comfortably expressing their preferences or choices at the comforts of their home with the people who are close to them, with the family members whom they are growing up with. Okay? So that's how you will state for the conclusion. Okay? That's how for the implication, relationship, or what else. For example, what came up in your in your result is more on regulatory, use the language to control. Then you have your implication. So what is the implication of that? Let us say you may have gender or possible. possible that it could be the implication that you notice that in the family it's more on what the parents would like the guide their children in terms of proper upbringing, because the dominant language is the first in here. Regulatory, making use of control of the house because your siblings are still young, and that is the domineering language function in the family. So more on upbringing. Okay, so did you see now? So you see, uh, language functions would mean a lot in terms of understanding the language and how. Okay, so how is it in terms of the social contexts? Okay, or how about gender? O napansin mo, you've noticed that for more on the conversation or gender, female and then male, you've noticed that for female, they always want to have the preferences, and then for the male, they are very curious about, for example, in here or representational. Then what can you say on that? Okay, like for girls, they are soft spoken, that they would like to express their preferences, for example, with approval of the male in the family. Okay, naintindihan ba? Did you get what I mean? Did you get what I mean on how are you going to look on the implications of the language function? Naiintindihan ba? Okay, so one is raising, wala pala. Okay, so did you get what I mean? Do you have questions? Do you have questions?
Clear po, ma'am. Thank you po.
Okay,
Sige po,
so
ma'am. Thank you po.
okay. So it depends now. So you analyze now your own family on how is the function of the language. Okay? Pwede if you are in a boarding house, o pwede pa rin naman yon even if you are not with your family members in the boarding house, o pwede rin. Or not literally sa loob ng bahay. O for example, when you are with your a family in the front yard, you're having your conversation at the front yard, and then that could be okay. O sige. Okay, do you think that would be possible? Lahat ba kayo nasa bahay? Lahat ba nasa bahay? Will you raise your hand if you are all at home? And this particular spoken discourse, the analysis of the spoken discourse would be possible. Raise your hand if all of you are at home or with your cousins, with your relatives, kahit with your grandparents. Pwede. Oh, how about for the others? 10. Okay. So majority naman, 12. Okay. So that would be very much possible for us. Okay, 11, 14, 11. Okay. Okay, so see, that's how. Okay, in the future, if you will have your research, then you may do that. Language at home, language at school, language at the marketplace, then that could be your subject for your research. Okay? Ayan. So here another example. Ito naman classroom experience. Okay, regulatory use control example. Kaya lang dito example lang ginawa instead of the actual. Instead of the actual. Okay, yung do as I tell you, making rules in games or giving instructions. Okay? So that'll be there are different contexts, and in here you can see that it's very broad. Okay, so it's like an endless possibilities of analyzing spoken and written discourse as we start this spoken discourse. So you can see, and you will also realize as you're the one who will analyze, okay, that language, the use of the language do have its power. Okay, so we will go back into the first concept that we have, that language do have roles. You would be able to understand the social context because of the language, diba? So you would understand, okay, the human nature because of the language. You would know the differences of the use of the language pertaining to gender, the language of a man and then the language of a woman. So you would understand, okay, the language. You would understand pertaining to age, or the language of a child would be different in terms of the language of an adult and language of old. Okay, so you see now. So that's the another good thing, okay, for exploration. Okay? O ayan na, marami na kayong pwedeng maging research once you have your research subject. Okay? The implications of the language use at home. Okay? So as we look on the discourse and the society, you will see that on how we started, understanding on how we started, okay, you would be able to understand how things are chunked or be on its place in terms of analyzing, right? Okay, discourse and society, so it has something to do to bring together the social theory and the textual analysis, uncover the hidden assumptions of language use. Okay, so you see now that for the language, what about making sense of those language, what about the meaning of that language? Okay, what about the function of the language? Okay. And then that brings to the CDA, so critical discourse analysis. CDA brings out the social change supporting the struggle against inequality. So if you encounter discourse analysis and critical discourse analysis, so CDA would like to connect things into the society. So for example, if for discourse analysis, what we will do in your language functions at home, you then make a conclusion, implication about the language function at home. Okay, you may come up with anything about what you can conclude, what you can see at home. But for CDA now, you will extend it. Okay, so is stretching it, your implication up to the society. Like, you may say that if you came up with implication like in the Filipino family is still patriarchal in nature, mentioning that it could be common with Filipino family, so still living with the traditional. Once you mention that one with the stretch of the social change in the society now, you're expanding now aside from only at home, but then you also consider the totality of your analysis in the society, and then that is the CDA. Okay, you see the point now, from discourse analysis going to the CDA. So CDA brings out the social change supporting the struggle against inequality. So it could be one way. A CDA views language and other semiotic systems as form and social practice. So take note of the following proponent. You may have them once you come up with your theoretical framework in your study. Okay, actually that's the most difficult, to think of what particular theory and who is the proponent. Okay, so remember these names. So Van Dyck, you may also have the views of Fairclough and Wodak about CDA. Okay, using the language is the commonest form of social behavior. If language is form of social behavior, then there's a need to relate theories of society to theories of language. So if we are ending on the theories, the language itself, then extending it in the society would be the primary concern of CBA. So that would mean the discourse itself and the society brings you to critical discourse analysis. Okay, from its own term critical, because it is not just easy to arrive with analysis, and you will be covering the society itself. For example, when you have your analysis of the functions of the language at home, so that is the discourse analysis, then that's the what the data would say. But if you will connect it with the society, so that's another concern that you have to prove. So that would mean your study will not be limited in your home, at the comforts of your home. Then you may also look on other families too, for you to have the CDA. Okay? So it's not as simple as that. So what you will be doing on the functions at home, language functions at home, it's a discourse analysis. Okay? It's a discourse analysis because we have one. Okay? So we have one. If we will make use of the term in research, for the respondents, we only have one group. So if you would like in the future to have that example as CDA, critical discourse analysis, then you have to record, let us say, delimit your study of families in, for example, kami, Cavite, of families in Barangay Bayan Luma, Imus, Cavite. So you delimit now. So we may come up with what's in the society of this particular barangay pertaining to the language functions within their family. So if that is the case, it is now the attack for the CDA. So that will be the theory that you're going to use. Okay? So were you able to see now the difference between the discourse analysis and critical discourse analysis? So raise a hand if you're still in there and you get the point for discourse analysis and CDA, critical discourse analysis. Raise your hand if you can still, if you can understand. Ayan, so that's a good thing. So I can see, okay, majority would be able to understand. Okay, so it's important to understand the difference between discourse analysis and critical discourse analysis. Okay, so let's proceed. So discourse and the society. We see CDA as bringing a variety of theories into dialogue, especially social theories on the one hand and linguistic theories on the other hand, so that its theory is shifting synthesis of other theories. So though what it itself theorizes in a particular mediation between social and the linguistic phenomenon. Okay, so if you will have the critical discourse analysis, then you will have the text. The text could be the representation of the spoken or the written discourse. It could be the written, where you will study printed materials. It could be for the written text. Then you look into the discursive practice, okay, like production, distribution, consumption. It could be on the language. You analyze the language. But once you move to another, okay, in here, you are extending the boundaries of your analysis and you try to connect your analysis of the language in the society, social practice. So that would mean it's the critical discourse analysis. So it's the three-dimensional view of discourse. Okay, so if in here, if it's just two-way, you look into the text, oh, that's discourse analysis. Okay, when we said discourse again, it could be spoken or the written discourse. So CDA views discourse and society mutually constitutive. Ayan. So for us, the first example that you're going to do is you just look on the language. And from there, you get the implication, you make conclusion. Okay? But for CDA, it is being viewed that discourse and society as mutually constitutive. So that would mean there's a point in the CDA that what you are seeing in your own family would be possible in the society. So then, come on, let's go out and look for other language functions in another family. Okay, so that could be an example. Okay, if, for you to get the point. So CDA views discourse and society as mutually constitutive. A society is not possible without discourse, and on the other way around, discourse cannot exist without social interaction because of the belief that for that discourse, the society will not exist without discourse. So can you imagine how are we going to exist if there's no spoken or written discourse? Or the worst, what if it will be both? Okay, and on the other way around, of course, what will be the who is the producer? So that would mean what is the source of those discourses? And that's the society. So the human being who are producers, who are inventors of that language. So it's mutually constitutive. So one will not be possible without the other. Okay, so all action is discursive. On the contrary, CDA allows for the interplay of discursive and material action. So that's another thing for Van Leuven in 1996. So for Van Leuven, what he would like to introduce now is the interplay of discursive. It's like is stating that it will not be general, that what would be possible within the family of Barangay Bayan Luma 5 of Imus would be the same if we will go to Barangay Batong Bakal in Laguna. Okay, so that could be an example. So that is what Van Leuven would like to introduce. So it's a never ending, okay, realization of the functions of the language and also looking into the society or vice versa. Diba? So that's why when you have your research, you cannot reason out that you cannot think of a topic. Because if you will have CDA, di ba? O may topic na kagad kayo for your research. May stylistics pa kayo. Okay? So the application of those concepts o another topic for your research or exploration. Di ba? Okay? Oh, so that's how. Oh, yung subject pa natin before example. Asan ko pa kayo naging subject, naging klase? Phonology and morphology. O phonology, if we will have that before, for the study of the spoken discourse, for example, you'll identify the distinct sound. O, di ba? So that's another study. Oh, when we said morphology now, then you come up with the language structure of Filipino, Tagalog of Quezon province. So you see, so you see now on how will you go back into the concepts of your discussion and then turn all your learnings into research, exploration, okay? Your contribution into the body of knowledge in your own discipline, okay? So, ayan. So, excited na ba kayo mag-research? Are you excited in your research? Okay. Sinong excited in terms of researching? May naiisip na ba kayong topic? Okay, so probably it's too early, no? So it's too early, but then I hope that you would be able to get, okay, how are you going to apply what we are discussing, what you are discussing in your subjects as your contribution in the society. Ayan, so that's your role. Okay. So next, discursive situation. So the role of CDA is to reveal the relationships. Okay, so for CDA now, so there are the three things that we may take a look: power relations, emancipatory in nature, dominance, and equality. Okay, so these three, so the three things that is attached to the role of CDA. Ayan. So when we said, ay, nawala yung animation. Eto muna. Okay? So for that, as you take a look on the following, so we can say that those three bring role about the change in the social practices and relationship. It includes the microanalysis of text and macroanalysis of social structures and formations and power relations. Ayan. So you will encounter again the microanalysis and macroanalysis. That will be your midterm exam, right? Yung micro and macro analysis. So probably first thing next meeting, then I will introduce to you your midterm exam on the microanalysis and macroanalysis. Okay? So that means you will analyze the interplay of texts and context. Okay, interplay of text and the context. So you look into the text itself, a particular discourse, and how it play into the society. Ayan, okay? So I will take note. So that first thing again, first thing next synchronous session, I will introduce your midterm exam on the micro and macro analysis. Okay. So, Linguistic Features of Spoken Discourse by Halliday in 1975. So, what are the possible studies that you may analyze for spoken discourse? Phonological contractions and assimilations, hesitations or false starts, and filled pauses. Okay, repetition, okay, sentence fragments rather than complete sentence is structured according to prosodic features rather than clauses, high incidence of discourse markers at the beginning or end of tone groups, relatively frequent use of questions and imperatives, first and second person pronouns or deixis, yung reference. Okay, so reference like yung that, here, there. Okay, so pointing. Okay, so those could be other other exploration that you may do for spoken discourse. So what we did is only one of yung functions of the language. Okay. How about for written discourse? Longer information units. So that is what you may study or explore. Complex relations of coordination and subordination, high incidence of attributive adjectives, wide range of or more precise choice of vocabulary than in speech, high degree of nominalization, longer average word length, greater use of passive voice. Okay, so take note that these are the possible, the suggested exploration of linguistic features on both spoken and written discourse. Okay, so next, so CDA Research Toolkit. So features of text to examine. For example, on the spoken, what do you want to study in there or to focus? You will delimit your focus. You would like to have the stress or intonation, repairs, hesitation, speech acts, word order, lexical style, coherence, local semantic moves such as yung mga disclaimers with the use of that, topic choice, schematic organization, rhetorical figures, syntactic structures, propositional or turn taking. So those are the possible for you to analyze. Or other thing, word or phrase level. Yung classifications, connotations, metaphor, lexical presuppositions, modality, register, politeness. Okay, I know that some of the terms I'm mentioning you are familiar with when you've discussed when you had your subjects in the branch of linguistics, yung phonology, morphology, pragmatics, okay, semantics. Okay, so here are the other more exploration that you may do. Now if you would like to explore further sentence or utterance like deletion, transitivity, topics, presuppositions, insinuation, heteroglossia, okay? So once you are in your research or you are in the professional world or you are in your graduate studies, then go back on the following. So what particular exploration do you want for your study, for your contribution? Or it could be text level, genre, it could be discursive, coherence, framing, foregrounding, textual silences, presuppositions, extended metaphor, auxiliary embellishments. Okay, what other more explorations? Or it could be general, like the centrality of the processing of the ideas, use of heuristic, ideology, reading positions, naturalization, reproduction, cultural models and myth, master narratives, intertextuality. Okay, or here context contrast, communicator ethos, vividness, repetition, face work, type of argument, interest, agenda setting. Okay? So no need for you to know all each, okay, topics as presented. So these are presented to you. So you would be able to group things or in research variables together once you are on that particular phase. Okay. But then I believe that some are familiar to you. So at least you know where are those topics, okay, are connected into some issues, okay, and you know that it would be possible if you will have the discourse analysis or the CDA, okay, in both spoken and written discourse. Okay, so some key issues of CDA. So ayan, so when we had the three, remember that the language and power, CDA enables us to look on the discourse dimensions of power abuse, which leads to injustice and equality. Ayan, so those are the common that they were able to realize before when they did the CDA. Okay, because it's about language in the society. as one of the essential functions of text and talk is to persuade others to one's point of view. It is possible to analyze the linguistic structures and the discursive strategies of a discourse in order to uncover the power struggle, social inequality, and other forms of social and political problems at issue. So it could be one that you may take a look on the power of the language or language and power. Okay, you may discover social issues on the existing discourses, for example, in the news articles and so on. Okay. So language and power, when applied to analysis of social inequality, CDA accounts for how discourse structures which are established through various linguistic patterns and structures. So how people think, we can see that on how people think, on how they use the language, it can contribute for us to discover the social structures of inequality and injustice of power in the society. So, if we will have, for example, if we will have the situation in the court, when we try to get evidence from the situation, then the language, the testimony of the witness, okay, so that could be the source, for example, for us to arrive that there is injustice taking place in the society or in that specific case. Okay. So now looking on the situation as in the society. Okay. So the next thing, for Fairclough, okay, Gramsci. So those are the names. Okay. Hegemony refer to the exertion of power through implicit means rather than military force. Okay, this may be achieved through application of laws, rules, habits, or may just be a matter of general consensus. This one is, if you will be seeing that there is a general consensus in terms of the language or as what you observe based on the situation. Okay, for example, so it will be clear. Let us say the war in Ukraine and Ukraine versus Russia or vice versa. Okay. So let us say with the language or the statement of the president, if you're going to analyze the speeches of the president during the war, oh, it's another study. Or speeches of the president during the war. So what can you get from that? Okay. Can you have can you see that there is an exertion of power? Will Can you see, yeah, you will, then you may analyze or you may see if there is injustice taking place based on the language. Do you think the order or decisions would be right, or negotiation? So that could be okay. Next thing, leadership as much as domination across economic, political, cultural, and ideological domains of the society. So if you will have that one, so you can relate discourse into the social structures, and then all the more on the discursive structures of the language, on how are you going to get it. Okay, more on the social structure as manifested in the discursive practices. Like, can you see society's norms based on the language, based on the speech, based on the conversation, based on the written documents, okay, based on the agreements? So for example, you would like to realize that in the tribe, or you try to get the announcement of the barangay in the tribe of blank blank blank. Then you'll try to identify now what's the society's norms, what about their identities as written on the written discourse. Ayun, possible. So this means the changes in the society are reflected in the changes in discursive practice and vice versa. Okay, so we can see now on how certain discourses come to prevail in a given socio-political context as a result of a struggle. Okay, another thing is identity, another thing that you may look. So it's a fluid construct that is subject to change. For example, the person who I am now is different to the person I was 10 years ago, or even last week, or indeed yesterday for that matter. At the same time, identity may be multiple. I have an identity as a man, as a professor, as a father, as a husband. So the issue in here for CDA is you may take a look on that particular language. You may analyze the language based on the identity. Okay? Which is same and true. You are different as, for example, if you will be, your language as a neighbor would be different your language as a sibling or as a child. Okay, so identity. With that particular construct, it is being identified that one's identity is manifested in one's social practice, an important part of which is the discursive. Okay, so discourse again, based on the spoken or written discourse. Okay, on how are you going to perceive that particular identity? So given the foregoing for flower dew, identity is constructed through space and time. So the point in here, if you're going to analyze the identity, so it may be different as time pass by. Like what is your identity on how you use the language for today would be probably different 5 years from now. And that's true. We can agree into that, right? An individual or group's identity will, to an important degree, depend on situational and historical context in which they are located. So, for a deeper understanding of the identity, then you may try to explore even the situation and even the historical context of that particular subject or the source of your discourse. Okay. So the situational aspect of context with regard to discourse identity is emphasized by Bloomert in 2005. Okay. So that would mean it's not only one who then prove that by context or situation. Let's see. How about you? Do you agree on that? Will you raise your hand if you agree that the language, oh, what's this one? Do you agree? Ay, connectivity issues. Okay. Ay, how will I remove? Ayan, okay. Okay, so let me go back into my question. So do you agree with that? That identity would be another okay issue for CDA that you have to take a look at. Will you raise your hand if you agree with our proponent for that, for the CDA, like the point of flower dew and bloomer, that you have to understand the identity, and then identity should be part of your analysis. And if that will do, then the situation and historical context could be part of it. Do you agree? Do you agree with that? Will you raise your hand in terms of identity? Do you agree? Do you agree? Galvez, may I ask Galvez, Daisy? Galvez. Ayan, I can see three, four. Okay. Ayan, so agreeing. So there are six who are agreeing on the identity. Okay, seven. Okay, how about Galvez? May I want to hear the voice of Galvez? Miss Dane Z. Galvez? Ayan.
Yes.
So do you agree with the concepts under identity as one of the issues for CDA that you have to consider? Do you agree?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, may I know why? Yes, may I know why? Why do you agree with that? Yes, Daisy, why? Why do you agree? And I would like to agree with you also. Okay. So I also agree with the concept, the concepts of flower dew and bloomer with regards to identity as something to consider for the critical discourse analysis. Yes, Daisy. Why? Daisy? Yes, Miss Galvez. Miss Galvez, hello.
Ma'am, sorry po. Um, yung decisions po kasi, especially nowadays, it affects the things we do po. Yun po, ma'am.
Okay, so it could be one of the examples for that, for the identity. Decisions would really affect. And so with your identity would affect your decision if we're going to connect your answer, okay, with the CDA. Like the language of adolescent like you in making decision for the power of the language would be different once you are done with your studies and you are in the professional world, right? So changing in terms of identity, the category of you now would be you are on the professional bracket, adult professionals. Okay, it will change again the functions of the language. It will change again on how we look on the social discriminations, inequality, and a lot more. Okay, so WODAF would like to support also demonstrated the importance of place in the creation of national identity, how people identify with a particular country. So we can say that if you will have your decision, Miss Dainzy, okay, pertaining to your identity right now, probably it will change 10 years from now. Okay, so that's the key issue of CDA. And most probably, if take note of the national identity, WODAC would like to include even the locality. So probably your decision will change once you are dual citizen and you are living in the United States. Okay, so are you seeing now the point for the identity as part of the issues that you have to consider for CDA? Siguro, for example, Miss Daisy, if 15 years from now you will live in the United States, you will have a green card in there, o, di ba? So, the language, if we're going to analyze the spoken discourse or your language in terms of making decisions would be different compared now, okay? Oh, ayan. So we can see that one. So we can say historical, social context, and even the national identity. So they are saying that it could affect. Okay. O last slide na to, last slide. So although identities are partly created by others and projected on groups or individuals, there's no guarantee that the projected identities will be taken up by individuals. So still, so Fairclough would like to to give the statement that a new discourse may come into an institution or organization without being enacted or inculcated. It could be observance from a group of individual which will construct the whole society, or it could be the whole society as a whole. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all the individuals are doing the same thing if you will look on the wholeness of the language. Okay, so that will end our discussion. Okay, so again, so your task for the functions of language at home and early first thing as we have our discussion for next meeting, I will elaborate the micro and macro analysis of language, micro and macro analysis of discourse. We will have the written discourse, okay, as your midterm exam. So I'll give the details of your midterm exams. Okay, so questions. There are two hands. Questions? Miss Eliza, do you have questions? And Miss Erica? Ay,
None po,
okay.
ma'am.
So,
Here
nakalimutan
po.
lang ibaba. Okay. So, you just forgot to bring down your hands. Okay. So, I hope that we have a clear discussion today, which you may use today or tomorrow in the future or even in your profession. Okay. O, sige. So, let's call it a day. So, we may still take our lunch and prepare for our next subject. Okay? O, sige. So, let's pray now. Let's have the closing prayer. This time, let's have Miss Belonia to lead the closing prayer. Miss Belonia. Okay, how about Miss Vencio? Miss Vencio, Karen, will you lead the closing prayer? Okay, Miss Vencio, will you lead the closing
Okay
prayer?
po, ma'am. Yes po. Hello po.
Okay, okay.
Okay po, let us all bow our heads, close our eyes, and feel the presence of the Lord. Dear God, we thank you, Lord, for this fruitful session. May your learnings remain, and as we face our endeavors beyond this class, may your guidance and wisdom be with us always. This we pray in the name of our mighty Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, bye-bye class. Stay safe. Happy lunch for everyone. Bye-bye class.
Thank you po, ma'am. Happy
Thank
lunch
you
po.
po.
Keep safe
Thank
po.
you po,
Thank you
ma'am.
po. Happy
Safe
lunch.
po.
Thank you po, ma'am.